Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is just eat meat, and that's what you should do. But if you're hiking or road tripping or stuck at work and you want something nutritious that is just meat, fat, and possibly salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. I like this product not only because it is pure meat, but also because I really want the carnivore market to thrive as well. The more we support meat only products, the more people will make meat only products, and this will bring this into the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to check out, then take a look and use my discount code HTC to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right. Thanks, guys.
I was just saying that I was listening to the podcast, the latest one with Dr. Paul Mason. What the hell? Morphine in dairy? Like, what was he talking about there? Is that like something that's added, or is this like a naturally occurring thing?
It's an opiate analog. So, it's not like, it's not morphine itself, but it's similar enough, and it hits on those morphine receptors, those opioid receptors. And so could potentially slow down the motility of your gut, which is how opiates cause you to be constipated, because they just slow everything down, they dry out more. But that, of course, that's not on a carnivore diet, right? Because if you have enough fat in your diet, there'll be fat in your stools, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. And but also the sort of an addictive nature to it, and a calming, soothing sort of experience that may be beneficial to babies nursing and things like that.
Of course. And I guess it sort of explains why people get so upset when you try and take their cheese away, like, that's my cheese.
It's a problem.
Yeah. Well, and there's something, that and the carbohydrates, or, one or the other is anytime I'm drinking raw milk, like I do not want to stop. And so like, that's a problem for me. And so I have to be a big boy and recognize that and stay away from it.
Yeah, and it's hard enough to get raw milk in Australia anyway, being like illegal or whatever. Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah, it's probably easier to get meth, like it's more supply.
I'll go talk to my neighbor, bro.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy how that works. Like there's certain things that are more criminalized than like actual illicit drugs. And it's like food. Like why do you care what food I eat? Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah. Oh man. And that's why, like, I don't know if you guys have been following some of that World Economic Forum stuff about the meat.
A little.
And I heard some guy talking about he wanted to reduce up to like 1 billion people eating meat and direct them to non-animal source protein, to a higher protein. It's more tastier protein. He didn't say, I'm assuming it's crickets or something, but
yeah. Or just that nonsense plant-based protein.
I think it'd be
that's dying out too. It's whatever he's invested in, I'm sure. Whatever companies he owns, that's probably what is good for the world to go towards. And getting 1 billion people in his market share, I'm sure that's exactly what he feels very strongly would be good to happen.
There are other compulsory products that with big margins that that have been pressed upon us recently as well. And you have to kind of follow the money back, and it all starts to make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly what's going on with trying to sabotage the prices of meat. And, there's something like a dozen different animal, slaughterhouses, processing plants, abattoirs in America, like just randomly burned down, like in the span of a couple of weeks. Like they just all just randomly had electrical, short circuits and things like that. Probably not. I mean, you never know, but I mean, it's a pretty strange coincidence. And all these other factors and weird taxes that are coming into play to make meat obscenely more expensive. There was one in Queensland. They were talking about putting in a $3,500 per cow methane tax. So all this methane that they're producing, $3,500. And I was talking to a rancher, and he was just like, "That is every single penny that we sell a cow for."
Yeah, so how much a cow costs.
That's it. And so that they're making no money, or they basically have to double the price of everything. So instantly, bang, that doubles at the price of the rancher, which is going to, once it goes up the chain with all the different middlemen and things like that, and getting added costs and things like that. That's just going to, you know, quintuple. And so I think that a lot of these people are heavily invested in things like Beyond Meat or whatever, have some sort of agenda somewhere. And you know, the Beyond Meat stuff, it's still way inefficient, and it still costs twice as much to put on a shelf, and they have to sell it for twice as much. So just instantly right there, like they've got to think of ways to get this more expensive, because they're like, well, you know, we have to compete. We have to get this competitive. But instead of making their product better or getting their product less expensive, they're just trying to sabotage meat and make meat more expensive. That's my suspicion anyway. It's just a bit odd that all of these things are happening at the exact same time. And just as an aside on that methane thing, that's a bit of an absurdity, because the cows don't make methane. First of all, they're not creating matter, right? It's the breakdown and degradation of fiber that produces methane from the bacteria. So it's the bacteria breaking down the fiber and producing methane as a byproduct, as well as short chain fatty acids, which the cow then absorbs, and they burp out the methane. That methane is going to be produced either way, because if that fiber just falls on the ground and gets degraded naturally, it's the same bacteria breaking that down. You know, termites get it, whatever animal gets it, whatever bug or bacteria get it, it still comes down to that breakdown process, and it produces methane. So regardless of where it happens, the breakdown of cellulose turns into methane, unless you burn it, and then it turns into other things. And those are the two options. You either feed it to a livestock, or the farmer burns it to make way for the next year's crop. So what do you want? You know, I mean, this is a bit silly when you're taxing a natural process.
Yeah, man,
you know?
It's madness. Yeah, I mean, there was no buffalo tax when there was 60 million buffalo, you know, roaming through the United States.
Hundreds, over 100 million. Yeah, you know, and you're gonna tax plants at night when they produce CO2.
Yeah,
they do that.
Bushfire tax. Imagine how much carbon comes out of a bushfire.
Right.
Well, we should probably tax the politicians that don't know how to, deal with forest management.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we should do that. You know, like in WA, they do that. You know, they clear out brush and do little small fires to burn out the things before it builds up too much. New South Wales, they don't, and so they had that massive set of bushfires, and it was a catastrophe. It was an absolute disaster. That doesn't really happen in places that they manage their forest life like that. So.
And why don't they talk about regenerative farming? Like when does that come into the picture, where it's actually helping the earth? And you know, like you don't hear this argument. Like people are just saying, like, yeah, it's cows, farts, and burps are the things to be scared of now. And you know, but I feel like I'm with you, man. It's beyond burgers. It's these elites, these corporations. They're the things to be wary of, not the cows, man.
Yeah, there was a good meme I saw someone post that said that, you know, they're saying that cows are bad, you know, for the environment. And they have a picture of like a bunch of cows in a field, and they're like, cows are the environment. You know, like, what are you talking about? And you know, they want to replace this natural process with a bunch of, you know, chemicals and processed garbage that, you know, whether or not it's good for us, which it's not, you know, it's still an industrial process. You know, you're saying that, and this is to save nature. This is to try to help the environment. This didn't exist in the environment. It didn't exist in nature. This is all brand new stuff. And so, you know, it's strange to say that this helps the natural process when it has never been the natural process, you know, and, you know, people are just getting, you know, goaded by this and sucked in. And unfortunately, you have a lot of very, very well-meaning people that get very, very hurt and, you know, physically upset by these sorts of things. And they go out on these crusades. You know, these like different vegan people and animal rights activists, they're like, this is evil, this is cruel, and all these sorts of things. Like, maybe, you know, and there could definitely be ways of improving things, especially in certain places like in Asia. They are pretty horrible to their animals. Totally on board with that, but they forget the other side of it, where what's the alternative? You know, compared to what are we comparing this to? What are we doing this to? Because when you compare it to animal, you know, food, monocrop agriculture, That's devastating to the environment. 55% of Borneo's rainforests are gone now. They've replaced it with palm seed oil crops, and the vegan sort of proponents that are, sort of puppeteering these poor people that are very well-meaning, are saying, oh, well, it's not really what it looks like. They're taking down trees, sure, but they're replacing them with trees. So same. Absolutely not. That is not an environment. That is not a robust ecosystem. And the animals are dead now. Like, the amount of orangutans that have been killed in those rainforests is ridiculous, because they bulldoze these trees down. All the animals and orangutans fall down to their death, and they have a horrible time dying, and then run over by tractors and things like that, left for dead. That's terrible. And that's been going on for decades, to grow plants, not farm beef. And then there's animals that come in and mess with those crops. They get killed. They don't want you messing with their crops, because that's money. And so, there was a University of New South Wales study in 2011 that showed that to produce 1 pound, 1 kilo of animal-based protein, versus plant-based protein, you had to kill 25 times the amount of sentient animals to produce the kilo of plant-based protein. So you're actually making a far greater impact and devastating animal lives much, much worse when you go for plant agriculture. And you, first of all, it's not bioavailable. It's not as nutritious, but it's also just not as good for the environment. It's not as good for the animals. Like, there's no perfect system. Like, something has to die for us to live. That's just the nature. I wish it wasn't so. Like, that would be great, but that's not the case. And we do have to do something, so we can do it the best we can. And I agree. Regenerative agriculture, that's returning nutrients to the earth and allowing ecosystems to survive and thrive. Alan Savory's proven this. I mean, he's literally reversed deserts all over the world. It's reproducible. He's been doing it for 40 years, teaching other people how to do it, and it works every time. So when you have, an experiment that you do and you publish, oh, that's great. Normally, you have people, the peer-reviewed literature used to be someone else would do it, and they would copy your experiment and say, yes, this is reproducible. This actually works. And peer review process is completely corrupted now, but that used to be part of it. And you would confirm, yes, this is actually true. This is reproducible. And so that's something you usually need at least 2 of those. So you have to reproduce it. So Savory's been reproducing this for 40 years, himself and others, independently. So, I mean, this helps and this works. And this is something that, people say is like, well, you can't support, all these billions of people just on meat. It's like, I'm sorry, but like, that's the only way we're going to support them. That's the only way we're going to support the planet. That's the only way we're going to return all these nutrients to the ground and revitalize the ecosystem. That's it. That's the only way. You can't do it with plant agriculture or anything else. It's animals. That's it.
All these animals can live amongst each other as well. You can have chickens and goats and pigs and all sorts of things, and cows in the same paddock. And
and sheep and cow eat different kinds of grass. You can have them in the same pasture as well, and they do very well.
With the the uptick in veganism and vegetarianism, is it a coincidence that autoimmune disorders and diabetes and cancers and anxiety and depression, this has all gone up? Like, it's to say we can't eat meat, like, to tell me that now when I've actually got a reference of how good I can feel and how much I can thrive, like, there's no way I would be going back to anything else. Like, it's meat all the way. I honestly feel there is no other way. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, especially when you have an illness like that, it's and I do agree with you. I mean, we see this massive increase in prevalence of autoimmune issues and other diseases. And people say, well, we probably just didn't notice it. It was probably already there. It's like, well, you clearly never lived with one of these diseases then. You clearly never had a family member with autism. You clearly never had Crohn's or ulcerative colitis or rheumatoid arthritis. Oh, you probably had rheumatoid arthritis the whole time. You just didn't notice. Yeah, I bet. Idiot. And like, I mean, that's just an insane thing to say. And what about obesity? We just didn't notice that 30% of people in Western countries were not morbidly obese, but overweight or obese. I mean, we just didn't notice that. We just didn't check. No, of course not. That's ridiculous. And so, this is I think is very, very clear. And you see in vegan populations that things like, mental disorders and other diseases, they're much more prevalent, autoimmune issues as well. And autism is much more prevalent in vegan and vegetarian households. So I think there's a direct causal link to that, eating the wrong thing and getting the wrong problem, right? You have zoos, they have those signs in the parks that say, don't feed the animals, and you say, oh, okay, why? Because it makes them sick. You don't feed them this, right? It's always been funny to me. You don't feed the animals the thing you're eating.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think about that? I remember thinking when I was a kid, it was like, don't feed the animals. Like, don't feed like what I'm eating. Like, that's a weird thing to say, and the information is right there. It's right there in front of us. And it's just, we just aren't looking at it. Yeah.
Did you guys ever, at any point in your lives, go vegetarian or anything like that at any point?
No. No, I've always been very big on meat. Like one time I did watch, there was this movie called Faces of Death, which sounds a lot more dark and horrible than it is. It was pretty dark and horrible, but the purpose of it was this pathologist who said that, we're so separated from our food, we're so separated from death. It used to be that this was something that people knew about from an early age. They would, kids would be at wakes and different funerals, and they'd see the body laid out and all these sorts of things. And people lived on farms, they produced their own food and livestock and so forth. People knew about this, and it's just like we've sort of gotten away from that. And I think that's actually damaged our society. I think it's important for people to see these sorts of things and to understand it. And I actually think he's right on that. A big part of the vegan vegetarian movement is they're just like so aghast that anyone could hurt an animal. Like, well, if you had to do this yourself, like you never would. You never would, just like the entirety of humanity did forever. That's how people did it. People did kill their own animals. They grew and raised and slaughtered their own animals. That's how it worked. They're like, oh, you would never hurt an animal if it was you. You just want to play with it and cuddle its little face. Maybe, but people do still hunt every single day, and so that's a bit silly. So in that movie, they showed a lot of these things. And some of it were like, people just being stupid and getting too close to animals in like Yosemite or something like that and getting taken out. And it was like on camera, it was pretty rough to see. And then others were slaughterhouse, and they like showed these things going on. And it's like, that's a lot to take in when you're 13, you're like, oh my God. I remember thinking, I was just like, okay, yeah, maybe I just don't want to eat meat. I think that lasted an afternoon, and like, and I was like, oh, well, and I was just like, yeah, we're having chicken tonight, so I'm probably going to eat that, and, yeah, it didn't last too long, but, I understand the sentiment. I certainly understand the sentiment, and I wish there was a nicer way to do these things, but unfortunately there's not. But, the ways that we have in slaughterhouses are as near instant death as it is possible to get at this point, and that's something that people have always recognized. Native Americans and other people all over the place, when you would hunt, you'd kill an animal, you'd say a prayer for it, and you'd thank its spirit that it's given up its life to feed your family. This is where things like halal meat and kosher meat comes in. Thousands of years, especially with kosher, a tradition of saying a prayer and thanking and blessing the animal before you kill it, because it's important and people respect and understand that. So I think that it's a very good sentiment.
Well, it's good to be back. I think I should do some sort of intro. We've got Scotty Brizzle here, who is a comedian and a carnivore, joining Dr. Chaffee and myself, and we're just taking the conversation wherever it goes. I think there's no structure. Hopefully, my internet will be there, and we'll just keep going.
Well, we should start off and ask. Yeah, Scotty, tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to carnivore and why you did so.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I've been sick for a lot of my life, but I just didn't really know it. I didn't have that reference point of how good I could feel. So I thought just having gut issues, joint issues, skin issues, anxiety and depression was just normal. That's just what a bitch life is, So, but I soon learned that wasn't the case from all my other friends and that just thriving. So but I was also brought up on like the standard Australian diet. So just shit, like refined sugar, carbs, processed packaged food. Like I remember one time doing sport for school, and we went down to the basketball courts, and everyone's bringing out their water and their Gatorade and that. And here I bring out like a 1.25 bottle of Coke. And yeah, I was that guy. And the coach, the basketball coach, was so like that look. I'll never forget that look. He burnt through my soul with that look, you know. And I see why. I don't blame him. So that was a lot of my sort of early adolescence days. Severe reflux on proton pump inhibitors from an early age. You know, that was just the norm. And it sort of really kicked off about 5 or 6 years ago, though, when I I was at this food carnival, right? And I rocked up after work, so I was late, and they just had this like chicken wing eating competition, but like with hot wings. So this chili sauce they had on there had the 3 hottest chilies in the world. So like Carolina Reaper, ghost pepper, scorpion. And so I rock up, and this one guy's like, "Hey man, do you want a chicken wing?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I love chicken wings." And I grabbed that thing, man, and I annihilated it. And before I knew it, I was in the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life, man. Like it was, I already had gut issues before this, but this felt like it just stripped everything. You know, I didn't sleep that night. The worst gut pains I've had, almost in tears. And literally the next day I wake up and my life is completely changed. Like all these foods I could previously eat, I couldn't eat anymore. Like I was having reactions to everything. And turns out I developed some crazy histamine, salicylate, gluten, and dairy issues. So all these foods I would just attempt to eat that I would normally have, I was just wiped out. And I'm like, well, what? So I just can't eat food anymore? Is breatharian the way of life now? And man, like it was insane. And I went from doctor to doctor to naturopath. And they eventually figured out that I had SIBO, or small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, which, yeah, I've heard a lot of shit about that. So I don't even know if it's real. But yeah, I had that. My IBS was apparently just severe now than you know, it was just moderate before. And yeah, so like I developed all these issues. They put me on all these supplement protocols. And I spent thousands on supplements over the years and herbal extracts and that, just to try and get better. And it got to a point where I just felt so helpless and lost. And, you know, I would get better and then I would go to shit. Then I'd get better and then it would be horrible. And like to points where my entire body was like, I was the embodiment of a red rash, you know, like my torso, my face, my back, my groin. And it was those moments where I'm just like, you know what? I can't do this doctor thing anymore. Like I didn't know doctors like yourself, Dr. Chaffee, existed. I just thought, you know, this is insane. No one's helping me. No one wants to help me. So I just thought I would take it into my own hands and started listening to a lot of podcasts and taking advice from, people like Ben Greenfield. I was doing a lot of the biohacking stuff back in the day. And yeah, so then cut to about, a year and a half ago or so, I was doing Paul Saladino's animal-based diet. So I was just doing fruit, honey, and meat, but I wasn't thriving at all. Like I was still messed up, man. And like, yeah, I just didn't know what was going on because food was so limited. And I'm like, well, what's the problem? Like I'm on this animal-based diet. And then I actually come across one of your videos, Dr. Chaffee, on Instagram. And that's when I got the remembering of seeing Sean Baker on Rogan's podcast in 2017. And then, it's sort of around 2019, I tried Carnivore for 2 weeks from Michaela Peterson and Jordan Peterson. Yeah, so they were the ones that sort of got me really into it. So I jumped on the bandwagon, but 2 weeks was just insane to eat only meat back then. And so I didn't last very long. And then I got on the Paul Saladino thing. And then, come across your videos, Dr. Chaffee, and I started doing just, I guess you call it the lion diet. And man, like all my symptoms started to clear up again. Like the skin issues went away, the joint pain, the anxiety, like the big one, anxiety. Like it just beautifully just, and that is one of the biggest things I noticed, because when you've got anxiety all the time and you're in like flight mode, that honestly can fuck your life up, man. And especially when you do stand-up comedy, like you're already at all-time panic mode and you're about to perform to 200 people. Like it was hard, man. And like having diarrhea on stage and like just trying to hold it in, and like, don't do it, man. Not in front of this crowd, like
I don't know. Maybe that'd be the biggest gag yet, maybe they just love it,
There were a few times I'm like, yo, I'm about to shit myself. I got to get the fuck out of here, But yeah, man. And now here I am, over 6 months doing carnivore. I have dabbled. Like, I don't know if you guys do the same. Most likely not. Definitely not. But like, say the other day, about a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I wonder what honey would do to me right now. And I had like the smallest little smidge on my finger, and I felt like my thyroid was going to explode, man. Like it's just insane, the reactions and how sensitive I am to these foods that I was eating all the time back then. But like now I actually have a reference of how good I can feel, and man, there's no turning back for me. Like I'm on the train.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Like, people don't realize how bad they feel until they get off it. That was exactly my thought when I got off this stuff. And I look back at how amazing I felt now, and compared that to the rest of my life, and realized like I've felt like garbage my entire life. That's not okay. And, talk to people like, well, I'm not really having any health issues. I actually feel pretty good. So do it. And I was like, you don't even know how bad you feel. Like it's, you don't even, I have no idea. And then, yeah, you're right. It does get worse. You get more sensitive to these things. You're seeing the contrast. You're like, I don't want any part of that. But also, you just get, just like any other, like drug or alcohol or anything like that, you become more sensitive to it. You build up a tolerance for these things over time. And then when you're not eating these things, you're not exposed to them, you don't need to produce the enzymes and things like that break these things down and detoxify them as, to such a degree, because you're not encountering it. Your body's very efficient at that. And so, yeah, you do notice a lot more. And so sometimes that can be very helpful to people when they slip up and go, is it that big of a deal? And I start eating something like, yep, nope, that's a big deal. Nope, don't want that. And, so it's good that you came across it. I'm the same way. Like some of those things slip in, I'm just not having it. Like, for instance, I was over at a friend's, and we were like cooking dinner and things like that. And they had some like pieces of chicken there or whatever. And like, I was just like, it didn't look breaded, but it had sort of something. I was like, is that breaded or anything like that? They're like, no, I don't think so. I think it was just, sort of fried up. I was like, okay. So I had like literally one piece of this stuff, and I'm sore today now. Like I went to the gym. I'm normally not sore. Like it's not that bad, but like I noticed it. And it's not what I normally feel like. I normally have no pain. My back pain, there's no back pain, no stiffness. Now I'm just a little bit sore, a little bit stiff. And I'm like, that's bullshit. There was crap on that chicken. And so, and like it does that to you. And, this level of soreness wouldn't have batted an eye at this, when I was like playing rugby and things like that. I would have thanked God for this level of soreness. So it's not like it's out of control, but I notice the difference. And, when you go from just not having any of that in your body and, not having any soreness and stiffness, that's nice. That's nice to have that. It's nice to not have pain all the time.
You normalize it, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Well, you have to, because it is normal. That's your life. Every day you're in pain. So you got to suck it up and deal with it,
I was going to say, I've done the exact same thing with like, a bit of potato with dinner, something like that. And you just like the instant bloat, or like, having too much dairy. And it sort of reminds you, it's like, I used to feel bloated all the time. I used to feel bloated after every meal, and, and then lethargic, and then a bit of a headache and all that sort of thing. But when you go without it for so long, it's such a shock when it happens.
Yeah, it's not nice. And, not understanding why. You're just like, wow, I'm just sore today. I'm not really feeling good. You don't know what's going on, but now you kind of do, now you can associate that with things that you're eating and recognize that like, actually, these things are really actually causing harm. It's interesting.
I think it's a good reminder too. Like it's a bit sadistic, but I think, yeah, it's a good reminder because like, yeah, a couple of months might go by and I'm like, oh yeah, this is normal. And yeah, I'll have a little bit of honey and I'm just not for 6 for like, not even just the next day. It's a few days, man. Like, I remember I had coconut water. Oh, it was a couple of months ago now, but yeah, instantly anxiety skyrocketed and it stayed there like that for probably like 4 or 5 days afterwards for 250 mils of coconut water. Like,
yeah. And you were saying that you had like IBS and things like that. What other sort of issues were you having that have since cleared up, or have they cleared up?
Well, I talked to a lot of like doctor mates here and they suspect that I might have Crohn's, but because I just bailed on the doctors. I never found out because I was just like, look, I'm out of here. I don't care what I've got. I'm going to fix this myself. Very stubborn. And yeah, so that could have possibly been a thing. But I've also got a bone disorder called osteochondritis dissecans that I've had since a child. And so that's been a big factor. But even like vitiligo that I didn't realize that I had, that got really bad when I was, eating grains and whatnot. And I just started getting all these like white patches over my arms that wouldn't go away. And then I realized, oh, this is like an autoimmune thing. Same as rosacea. I've had rosacea on and off since teenage years. Pityriasis rosea. I've had that on and off as well. So like a lot of skin issues, but I've had leaky gut like for long periods of my early adult life. But yeah, and then just the anxiety and depression pretty constant through adolescent days too. So, but mainly the gut stuff, man, that's been the worst because like there's been periods of my life where, I've had diarrhea for 6 or 7 months straight and nothing can, figure it out. So it's like, people were telling me, oh, dude, you're going to have a week's worth of carnivore diarrhea. And I'm like, man, that ain't nothing. That ain't nothing, man. Like you try half a year of diarrhea. Like, so yeah, it's a lot of the gut stuff that's been my biggest thing, but still a bit of a mystery, but suspected Crohn's.
Okay. Has that gotten better?
Oh yeah, significantly. But as I was telling you, when the Zoom cut out, that Wagyu steak that I had, that is like, that brought me back to the old days of how just nauseous and sick and uncomfortable I could feel. So that sort of brought me back too, just like having a 250 gram Wagyu steak. So yeah, and like, man, I am worlds apart better. Like it's night and day how good I'm feeling. Like I'm running 5Ks like most mornings now. That wouldn't even be a thing, back in the day, because like my bone disorder, all my knees and my ankles are just jacked. But up at 5:30, run by the coast for 5Ks, and I'm like, what's next? It's worlds apart, man, how different I feel. And there's no turning back for me. Like I finally feel my optimum, and that's probably stacking other things like doing a sauna a couple times a week and doing ice baths a couple times a week. So like stacking certain lifestyle choices. So it's probably a mixture of all that, but it's obviously meat that's healing me. And I do have I think a bit to go. Like I'm not there because years and years of illness is probably not going to be fixed with 6 months of carnivore. So I'm like, but I'm leaps and bounds ahead of where I was for sure.
Awesome. And the vitiligo, has that filled in?
Yeah, filled in on my arm. Oh, well, you got Marcus Aurelius here, so you can't really see it. But it's in a lot of my arms, but I've still got speckles all over my legs, but it sort of just looks like, a cool little universe. So it's not that bad but I had like patches on my arms that were like going like really white. So, but yeah, most of them have filled in.
That's really cool. That was something that I heard a friend of mine in Europe. They actually said they just followed me. They didn't tell me, but they were like, they ended up trying carnivore. And then they told me like, wow, I feel so great on this. And actually my vitiligo went away, and started feeling in, which is crazy, I mean, like, because you'd think that like once those, melanocytes are dead, they're not going to come back. And then there you go. They do, or they can anyway, apparently. And so that's really, really cool. Like I would have expected the process to stop and the antibodies to go away. But it was very, very interesting to see them actually regenerate and produce pigment again, which is really cool. And it's fascinating. Like, you know, the more and more and more people that do this, the more and more problems that we see actually get better. I've yet to see an autoimmune issue that doesn't get better, which makes me, you know, very, very confident that it's really a direct cause of eating the plants and producing an immune response to some of this garbage that are in plants, like the lectins and so on. And you remove those and your body stops making antibodies. Simple, you know, and you don't get that cross reaction. Yeah.
So do you think it's like just a buildup of toxicity over the years, and then boom, you've got Crohn's, or you've got, you know, vitiligo, because of it's just a built up of like all the, I guess, toxins that are in, you know, the plant defense chemicals and whatnot?
It's hard to say exactly what's going on, but, you know, I think one of the competing theories that I think is, you know, probably, you know, describes things better than other theories is that it's this idea of molecular mimicry, where your body will react to certain things like lectins or certain lectins or other molecules that the plants use as defense chemicals when they get through into your body with, you know, from leaky gut and things like that. And they're not supposed to be in your body. They're not supposed to be in your bloodstream, in your system, but they get there, and your body recognizes these things as foreign objects and, you know, potential, you know, foreign pathogens. And so it mounts an immune response and attacks them. And for whatever reason, you know, you have some sort of genetic similarity that, or you have some genetic predisposition that makes some of your proteins, some of your something on the surface of certain cells similar enough that those antibodies sort of stick onto them, because they're mindless. They, you know, they don't know what they're doing. There's just a chemical that goes out and it reacts to certain things, but it's very specific for a specific you know, molecules. And so that's close enough that it sort of partially sticks to something on the surface of your cell, and it tags it as like, hey, this thing has to die. And then your body attacks that. But, you know, it used to be that people think that molecular mimicry, your body would get sensitized through those antibodies to one of your own self antigens. But that never really made sense to me, because your immune cells don't really have the ability to attack your own cells. They go through a rigorous process when they get made, go to the bone marrow and the thymus and things like that. They don't get let out if they respond. They're introduced as these immune cells are maturing. They are introduced to a lot of antigens in your body, and if they react to any of them, your body kills that cell. So your body's doing this very, very carefully. And so you really shouldn't be able to react to your own cells. So and it also fits because that your body's just attacking these other things and mounting an immune response to that. And part of that immune response happens to have a partial effect on your cells as well. And that's also evidenced by the fact that when you remove these foods and you remove those lectins and other little things that this is reacting to, the autoimmune condition goes away. Your body stops, and the antibodies reduce and eventually go away. And so, you know, I see that, you know, all the time. We have dozens of Hashimoto's patients, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, where you can actually measure the antibodies that are attacking your thyroid. And they go down, just goes down, go down, steadily down, and then go back to normal. So, you know, that's what I think is going on. And so for whatever reason, your body's maybe fighting this off, not really doing too much with it, or maybe you haven't damaged your gut lining and your body enough to allow all these things in enough numbers that your body can react to it. It's hard to say. I don't think we have a very good answer for that yet on why things start at certain times and not at others for people. But I think that that's the process, is that our body's reacting and responding to something and mounting an immune response to that thing. And there's overflow. It's just making a whole bunch of antibodies that just get into your system, and hey, you know, it sticks onto this thing that's not meant to be. It's trying to suck up all the lectins and things like that are around, but they happen to stick to some of your cells. And when you get rid of the lectins, you stop producing the antibodies. They stop having that overflow sticking to your cells. And so that's what I think is happening.
I had a similar thing with histamine. That was my big thing. And like, so I could eat histamine foods and it would be fine. But when it reached that tipping point and I would obviously have an overflow of histamine, it took me like a few weeks to recover from that. Even though I was eating bacon last week with no problems, I'm eating bacon today and I'm having the worst GI issues, you know, irritability, all the symptoms, you know, and yeah, it's just amazing, man.
Yeah, you got to be careful with bacon too, just because they generally do add sugar and things like that, and just pork in general. Like obviously, you know, if you've been eating it before and been having a good time, then that's, you know, that's reassuring. But a lot of people with autoimmune issues have a real hard time with any amount of sugar, any amount of anything like that. But also with pork, chicken, fish, eggs, egg whites certainly, and dairy in general. You know, and you know, like you mentioned Michaela Peterson. I saw her talk about a video maybe last month where she said she cannot eat pork at all, that actually gives her a worse flare up and reaction with her rheumatoid arthritis than like fruit would, you know. And so that's actually a big trigger
I
for
wonder
her as well.
if she ate free range pork that has been, you know, eating a more natural diet, I wonder if she'd be okay. I guess in the States it's hard to find.
I'm very, you know, I think that probably is the case. I'm very suspicious of what is being fed to pork and chicken and things like that, and like the eggs that the chickens come from. What are they being fed? You know, just something cheap, some cheap feed. And you know, especially when they have to keep them sort of contained and you know, barn raised and all these sorts of things. I mean, they're not in a cage, but they're not out foraging either. You know, and that is hard to do on a large production scale. But yeah, so I would just imagine most of it has to do with the animals eating. You know, like you were saying, Scotty, you do great with beef, you do great with meat, and then you had Wagyu, which is, you know, fed tons of grain and sugar and beer, you know, from birth. Like that's what it's eating, and that's how it gets all that intramuscular fat. You know, that's what's happening to people when they eat all that stuff too. Their you know, their biceps look like Wagyu steak, you know, which is why bodybuilders who do that, you know, they're not really gaining anything by that. They're actually hurting themselves because their muscles certainly aren't going to be as strong or as robust. They're not going to be able to work out as much, you know, because they don't have a lot of lean mass. It's all just clogged with fat. And you know, so what that cow was eating to get that marbling, you know, obviously that's not what the cow was meant to eat either. And some of that's going to translate to you. And you had that big reaction, you know? And so, you know, a pig that's just eating what it's not supposed to eat the whole time, like it's probably going to give a reaction too.
Yeah. It's really interesting though, because as I was telling you, I've got access to like all these great farmers markets. So I've gotten pork and chicken that have been marketed as pasture raised, and like I do trust these guys too. And every time pasture raised chicken or pork, it annihilates me. And you know, I love my chicken and just no hot sauce, but you know, I love my chicken, and it's like I get a pretty severe reaction that takes me days to get over.
Did they tell you what they're feeding them? Do they give them any feed, or they just forage animals?
Apparently they're just foraging out, they're getting the bugs and the grubs and the insects and whatnot. But yeah, like I would have to assume that they would be getting some form of like grain at some point, because, you know, if you've got if you've got a whole lot of chickens and, you know, like there's only so many bugs on the ground that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard to do that on a production scale. That's another thing too, like with pigs, they're generally given slop, you know, they're given like, you know, food waste from people in restaurants and things like that. That's what pigs are given a lot of the time. And I don't even know what a pig's supposed to eat.
Good question.
You know,
I think they're a bit omnivorous.
I know they eat people sometimes, you know, so maybe people are their natural diet.
Yeah, it just reminds me of those mob movies, man. That's what I went to straight away.
Yeah. Well, and you know, my grandfather, you know, grew up on a farm in the Northwest in the Northeast, and he said that was just part of farm life, that you knew you did not let kids go near the pig pen. and little kids, little toddler, you had to keep an eye on them if you had pigs because they were dangerous. And little Timmy would go over and look at the pigs, oh, these cute, fuzzy pigs, like, oh, that's so cute. And you'd never see Timmy again. That was just, you just knew that because they just chomp it down, man. They wanted that.
They're massive too. They're ginormous.
Yeah. They're very big. And big mouths, big teeth, big jaws, that crunch down a kid, no problem. And people, like, I think everyone who's seen Snatch knows that, like, all the things you have to do. You have to take the teeth out, take all jewelry out, but it can crunch through bones and everything like that, and there's like some sort of equate, like how much pounds of meat, how much pounds of like people, like a certain cow would do. So for this many pound person, you needed this many pigs to finish them in this many hours. And it's just like, okay. And who are you apart from someone who clearly feeds people to pigs,
So Scotty, what exactly are you eating?
It's pretty much exclusively beef and lamb. But a bit like Michaela Peters's mum, she could only eat lamb. I don't know, she might still only be able to eat lamb because beef reacts to her. Beef would react with me as well. But, when I got a few months into carnivore, because I was eating only lamb when I started this last stint of carnivore. And it took about, maybe 2 months, and then I introduced beef again and it was fine. So, it's pretty much just lamb and beef is my diet. I might maybe add, I don't know, some snapper, piece of fish, like once a month or something like that. But even still, like the histamine levels in that can sort of do a number on me. And so it's just, I hear people say like Judy Cho say, bring some fish in the mix for the good fats and that. And like, I listen and then I get a reaction and it's like, oh man, just stick to beef and lamb. Like there's just nothing else that compares.
And there's, I mean, and I think Judy would agree, like introduce some fish for those who are able to, and, but if you're getting beef, especially like, grass fed finished beef, plenty of good fats in there, tons of good fats. And, there's a lot of people like, the Andersons, like Charlene Anderson and her husband, who I'm blanking on the name, they've been eating exclusively beef ribeye for 20 years, 23 years, 25 years at this point, and thriving and doing really, really, really well, raising kids completely on ribeyes, and doing really well because of that. And so, you can do it, and there's certainly plenty of people that just eat beef. And, all the people that were living sort of in the middle of continents, they weren't really by, major water sources with a bunch of fish available to them. They were just eating beef, or mammoth or whatever, and doing great, so I think you do fine, just eating the meat that you are able to, and that makes you feel good. And that's it, just listen to your body.
It's amazing you never get sick of it either. Like I still crave, like, I had a nice little lamb roast just before, like half a kilo of lamb, and fills me up for like a little bit. But then like I crave it again, that fat and protein. Like I've just eaten it, but I'm craving it again. It's amazing. Like you never get sick of it ever.
Yeah. And I think that's because your body's telling you it wants those nutrients. I think that's what that is. There's other things that you want because you're used to it. It gives you comfort. You've acquired a taste for it, or it's an addictive substance like sugar and carbs. But there are things that give that positive response because they're good for you. And so I think that's why you never get sick of it, is because it's always tasting good because your body wants it. But when it, your body doesn't want it, it doesn't taste good. And so I think that's a good judge and marker of how much you're supposed to eat as well.
Yeah, just feel it. So that's what I was just going to ask you guys, like, what's your meal frequency, and like how much do you guys sort of eat? I'll
jump in. I was eating like 3 times a day up until recently, and we recently chatted with Asher from Primal Wellness last week, and he was telling me how he eats breakfast and then dinner. And because I've been going into an office regularly lately, like I haven't wanted to not to skip breakfast and then maybe skip lunch and try and make it through to dinner. So I've just said, all right, breakfast and dinner. And it's been working really well. And I just kind of like eat till I'm full. I'm usually not that hungry in the morning, but I'll try and eat as much steak and eggs as I can. And then I'll just wait till dinner. So I haven't eaten since I've gotten home today, and it's the afternoon, it's like 7 p.m. And that period's been great. Like just having 2 breaks from eating, while I sleep, and then morning to night. So that's working for me now.
Yeah, I tend to eat once a day. Usually if I'm working out a lot, then I'll need to eat more, but usually, just get like a whole bunch of, fatty steak until I'm full, and then I'm good. I'm good for another 24 hours or so. I eat surprisingly less than people would expect, for like someone my size. And, that definitely goes up when I work out, when I'm lifting a lot, then I definitely need more, to build muscle mass and to maintain that muscle mass. Like, I'm sort of like 105 kilos now. And I like to be, when I'm working out heavily and regularly, I'm usually like 110 and, very toned. And I like that. So it's like 240 pounds for people that don't do kilos. And, but I have to eat to maintain that, probably like 2 kilos a day to maintain that and go to the gym. And otherwise, even just like 105, 100, like I maintain that pretty easily just on 1 kilo a day. And, so, I eat less than some like old ladies that like join our group, they're like, eating 6 pounds a day. I'm like, Jesus, that's a lot more than me, and, but I think that, they're coming from like a nutritional deficit, and their body's just like, oh goodness, yes, get this in you, and they're trying to repair a lot of things. Whereas I've sort of been in a steady state for years now, and I'm just my body's just working.
And I think that's where like I've been, because I was doing 3 meals a day and probably eating half a kilo each sitting. And it felt great. It felt fine. But quite similar to you, Simon, I've gone to breakfast and dinner, and that just seems to be 2 meals a day spread across the day. Like, nice. Feels fantastic. And same thing, maybe like a half a kilo in a sitting, like a steak or, lamb roast or whatever. But yeah, I think like what you're saying, you've just got to listen to your body, eat till you're full, and like it does the work for you.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, we better wrap there. Scotty, thank you so much for joining us today. And
no worries. Wait, one last question. I've seen the podcast with you guys and Adam Kavanagh. Have you guys got on the bull testicle yet?
Shut up. Oh, dude, that's hilarious. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Who makes that? That's so funny.
Oh, dude, it's grass-fed too. So like it's
grass-fed bull testicles. I bet
Does it work?
Well, yeah.
Man, honestly, it gives you this like vitality and vigor that you don't
I'm buying
feel.
some now.
Like, it could be placebo. but honestly, man, it gives you this like, this extra kick. And look, there's people like I'm watching Liver King at the moment because he's gone natty now.
Has he? Has it? No, but he was.
Yeah,
natty,
he said he was. He said he was. I trust him. I trust the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, he's eating like 2 pounds. I think he said 2 pounds of bull testicle a day spread out over the day.
That's because he stopped all the HGH and testosterone, also bull testicle extract that he was injecting into himself.
Wow, that's a lot.
Of bull testicles. That's hilarious.
I'll have like four capsules or something. Like that's plenty for me, bro. But whether it's placebo, dude, you feel it.
Love it.
That's hilarious. That's funny. No, I have not tried that. But bull testicles, it's gonna go there. It's gonna go in your hot dogs and sausages, because they got to use it for something. They castrate these steers every year, and they've just got millions of these things just running around. So they got to go somewhere. And that is too funny. But I've never seen a testicle for sale anywhere. Thank God.
It's not cheap either. It's not cheap.
That's so funny. That's funny. Where does he even buy bull testicles? Where do you buy that? ball store.
Ask no questions. Just
You know,
put
like,
the nuts in here. No questions asked.
no, yeah, no, thank you. I think I'm fine with steaks. I'll just stick to that. Yeah.
No, thanks so much, guys. It's
Very
been a
good.
pleasure.
Thanks,
Hey?
Scotty. You're a legend.
Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
coming on, buddy. Yeah, and if you really want the real experience, there's every year in Montana, in Missoula, Montana, when they castrate all the the young male cow and the bulls and the rams and things like that, they have what's called a testicle festival, and they just have yeah, exactly, I swear to God, and there's just like all these like food trucks and things like that, just like serving up, roasted, sauteed, grilled balls, and so people just go there and they have this whole big festival. They're just eating testicle and testicle related foods. It's
Wow.
it's absolutely hilarious.
I don't know if I could do the real deal, the real thing. Put it in a capsule. Yeah, I'm good, but like I don't know about the real deal, man. That's a bit wild.
You got to get it straight from the source. Just rip it off
With your
yourself. And like the Adam Kavanaugh sort of thing. Just get in there.
I'll let you know how I go if I do.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Sounds
Scotty.
good.
All right. See you guys. Cheers.